All right, people. As you all know, the cultural discourse in our country, the thrust of what we're talking about at any given point in time is dictated by an elite group of intelligentsia at the top. One of them, Ben Shapiro, Lord of Libertarian Conservatism, here with a YouTube title, Unreal, Cartoon Network Tells Children There Are Multiple Genders. A fundamentally hysterical YouTube title, considering the fact that I'm pretty sure two is multiple. I'm pretty sure two things is plural. So, based Shapiro coming out here and saying, no, there are only men and everything else is a mental illness, which, frankly, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I could be sold on that. Ben, take it away.
This is why you have Cartoon Network, which it's a Cartoon Network. Yes, they have Adult Swim, but it is a network that is meant for children.
They have
now,
women in these
to
children's
indoctrinate
cartoons.
Children in this particular lexicon, because it's not enough that they speak this language. It's that you have to speak the language too. In a sectarian war, you have to make sure that people know the rights and people know the rituals.
What are
and
we
this is part of
talking
the
about?
rights and rituals, is adopting this sort of bizarre language and this bizarre philosophy of gender that nobody actually understands because it is utterly internally incoherent.
Okay. I love, by the way conservatives, so all conservatives do this. They have been trained to talk about media in a very specific way. Anytime media does a thing that they don't like, they will describe it in the most hilariously asinine way. It's never like, oh, this network holds values I don't agree with. It's always like, this network has been subjected to a line of neo-Marxist cultural propaganda in which they use a lexicon that is utterly incomprehensible to the average person in order to further indoctrinate. And like, meanwhile, keep in mind, Ben Shapiro, purportedly a libertarian, is talking about decisions being made by companies in a free market. And what's more, these companies make billions of dollars. They're clearly very popular. So when Ben Shapiro talks this way, you would get the impression that this is like, these are like dying, failing companies that are sinking because nobody can understand this gender theory they're going on about. But wait, hold on. They're actually doing... I'm pretty sure Cartoon Network's doing fine.
So Cartoon Network put out a tweet yesterday. Here's to not only normalizing gender pronouns, but respecting them too.
Aw.
Whether you use he, she, them, or something else, we acknowledge and love you. Right?
All right. Once again, I can't get over the fact that some people will see this and get offended. I don't know how much of a fucking pussy you have to be to get like hurt by something like this. Literally like, we love you no matter how you are. I hope you're all okay. Woo. Like, Ben's over here seething.
Because this is all the things, right? This is the elements that were just mentioned in that Edsel column.
What elements?
Right? By that tweet signifies all of them, right? It's othering. If you don't agree with us, then you're a member of an outgroup.
What?
It is treating people...
Oh, yeah. This is another thing they'll do, too. They'll say that actually, by indicating progressive values, companies are being exclusionary because if you see the things they say and disagree with them, they're ostracizing you. It's such a remarkably beta fucking tactic. Like, literally, well, when these companies say things and I don't agree with them, they're actually the ones being intolerant because I don't agree with them. Like, Ben Shapiro feels entitled to agreeing with everything every corporation ever does and says. And if he doesn't agree with them, that's the benchmark for them being intolerant. What a remarkably self-centered person.
As though they are bizarre and exterior. And it is moralizing. You're not loving and you're not good unless you use the sort of language that we want you to use, even if that language is actually counter to reality, counter to biology, and counter to...
So we can go this point by point. By the way, everything that Ben Shapiro is saying here would operate equally well if he was rage watching Sesame Street. When Sesame Street is like, you should learn to share with your friends. Ben Shapiro angrily pauses, sweat beading down his forehead. When Sesame Street invokes this highly moralistic, non-empirically provable assertion, what he's essentially doing is indoctrinating the youth that watch this. The youth, they don't understand. They don't know what sharing is, but they're getting taught this. And what they're essentially saying is that if you don't partake in this neo-Marxist agenda of sharing everything you own with everybody around you, that you are, in fact, an intolerant bigot. That is the most intolerant thing I've ever seen. I understand I'm railing on this, but I hope you understand that, like, there are two possible explanations here. Ben Shapiro is a moron, and I do think he's pretty fucking stupid, or Ben Shapiro is dishonest. And I think that's also the case. But like, the language he's using here is ridiculous. This is clown shit. Anybody should be able to make fun of this. I can't believe people take him seriously. Even conservatives, like when you're watching this, like, do you not realize that, like, he's loading every statement that he makes to the point of absurdity? Like, there's no actual message being delivered here.
To the ability to communicate clear ideas. So they put out this.
By the way, remember, this is what he said was incomprehensible. The tweet was like, "We respect you whether you're he, she, or they." And that is what Ben Shapiro has confessed he is not intellectually capable of understanding.
Tweet, and it has several graphics of cartoon characters. One cartoon character says, gender pronouns describe a person's gender identity.
Mm-hmm.
Another one says, examples of pronouns are she, her, they, them, and she, her.
So hold on. Let's Shapiro brain this, okay? Let's take a look at facts, all right? So the first word bubble here, gender pronouns describe a person's gender identity, is objectively true, obviously. That's how we've always used them. Even back in the 1400s, like always. That's what gender pronouns do, obviously. They're pronouns with a gendered element that describe the gender identity of the person they're referring to. Examples of pronouns are she, her, they, them, and sie, her. That's also a factual statement. Even if you don't like neo-pronouns, they're still examples of pronouns. You don't dig up words from the Sahara Desert. You invent them. All language is invented. This is factually correct. And then we got the last bubble. He hasn't gone over this one yet. A lot of people are still learning about gender. That would be Ben Shapiro. If you're comfortable, you can share your own pronouns. Literally nothing in this entire page is arguable. All of this is factually correct.
A third character says, a lot of people are learning about gender. If you're comfortable, you can share your own gender pronouns. And then it says underneath, gender pronouns. We can't tell someone's gender just by looking at them.
True.
And shouldn't assume we know. There are many gender identities beyond girl or boy. Some people don't identify as any gender. Okay.
True. Stay mad. By the way, Ben Shapiro is about to lose his fucking mind, but everything that he's about to say is not only subjective, it's also less defensible than the point being made at the bottom of this cartoon.
This is just indoctrination into nonsense because there is no biological basis to this.
Nobody cares. His metric for first of all, wait, hold on. This is so stupid. Whether or not it's indoctrination has nothing to do with whether or not there's a biological element to this at all. There's no relationship between these two variables. Even if there was a biological element, or even if there was no reason to believe there should be a biological element, that doesn't have any relationship to whether or not it's indoctrination. Which means, and I think he's just flat out admitting this, to him, indoctrination is when he disagrees with the things you're saying. You realize that, right? That's actually what he's saying here.
It is just semantic game playing, but it's not about actually making the world a better place. It's about in-group signaling that you are a member of the loving woke.
Telling kids that they're valid and that they're loved no matter how they identify isn't actually about making the world a better place. It's actually about signaling that you're the woke. Like, again, he's just so fucking angry. He's triggered is what he is. You know what Ben Shapiro reminds me of here? Ben Shapiro reminds me of a bitter ex-girlfriend who, even though she was the fault, like what was wrong with everything regarding that relationship, reinterprets everything that took place in the most aggressively bad faith way possible. That's what he reminds me of, like, unironically. You can't have a conversation with him about gender pronouns because he's not interested in having a conversation. Gender pronouns hurt him, and he's going to let you know every time it comes up. Also, stop fucking poll spamming. Jesus Christ.
Okay, that's what Cartoon Network is doing right there. And if you refuse to speak the language, then you are cast out into the outer darkness. And this sort of language characterizes everything that is happening in our politics right now. Gavin Newsom, yesterday, he was tweeting out about the Trump administration saying it would be cutting $200 million in federal health care funding to California because the state requires insurance providers to cover abortions, right? Which is a normal political issue. You'll see Democrats attempt to hold...
Normal political issue. So it's political propagandizing to tweet out a cartoon image saying that all genders are valid, but it's not at all virtue signaling or forcing your moralized values on society to withdraw $200 million in medical funding because you fund abortions. Like, this explains where his bias comes from. To him, saying all pronouns are valid, inexcusable, indefensible, unreasonable, And all you're doing is signaling your woke thing. It's not even about improving society, but taking 1/5 of $1 billion away from people needing healthcare during a massive pandemic. Now that, no, that's just a normal political issue. It's totally fine. It's totally normal.
Hold back funds based on pro-life positions. You'll see Republicans attempt to hold back funds based on anti-life positions. Here's Gavin Newsom's tweet.
Wait, when have Democrats withheld medical funding from a state because the state had laws which made abortion harder? Has that ever happened? Does anyone have an example of that happening? Yeah, I like the anti-life instead of pro-choice. I don't have any recollection of that ever happening. Usually Republicans, or at least Trump specifically, is the one who only acts like he's the president of the Republicans in this country, and that, like, the Democrats in this country are just annoying pests.
Nothing like the pro-life party eliminating healthcare during a global
How
pandemic.
did we get here?
California will survive without this dollars for now, but their frail, pathetic, patriarchal system they are so desperate to protect won't. Right?
So, okay, if I lived in California, or I guess if I was just a decent human being in general, I think it'd be pretty reasonable to be upset that 1/5 of $1 billion was being withheld from medical funding during a pandemic because of a political bias.
That is in-group signaling. When he uses...
See, but to him, everything is... Like, Ben Shapiro can be a conservative demagogue and make video after video and say and do whatever, and that's not signaling. That's all just completely disciplined, determined, in and of itself, valuable discourse. But anytime anybody else makes any point, it's actually about inducting people into the woke cult.
This is the word patriarchal. You might say to yourself, wait, Gavin Newsom is a dude, isn't he?
What?
Yes, he is. You might say, isn't he the governor of California?
What?
You know, the head of that system? Yes, he is. You might say, well, isn't that system, well, wasn't that created by men, the one that he's taking advantage of? Yeah.
He doesn't know what a patriarchy means. I think I understand now why he can't understand gender theory. He actually is intellectually incapable of knowing what these terms mean. You claim it's patriarchal to withhold money because of abortion funding, but have you ever noticed you're a man? Like, actually, like 40 IQ shit, dude. How did people ever get away with calling Ben Shapiro a precociously intelligent youth when he's like 35 and a fucking idiot?
Yes, it is. It's not about that. It's about signaling to everybody else he speaks the lingo. The lingo, again, that secret knock, the lingo is terms.
Secret knock when you tweet directly what you believe and what your intentions are. The secret language. You see there, when you're looking at a Yield 1941 Twitter, from all the people saying that America should open its borders to the Jews that are fleeing Nazi persecution in Germany, actually, they're not actually talking about the Jews. What they're talking about is a secret handshake to everyone. See, when they say here, you shouldn't leave them to die in Germany, what that actually is a woke virtue signaling handshake to express to all the other socialists and trade unionists that they are speaking the same language. You could do this to anything. You could do this for everything. This is nothing. He's not even doing political analysis. He's empty. Head empty, man.
Terms like patriarchal, terms like systemic injustice, terms like
words I don't understand.
whom, him, them, whom. Right? All of this crap is designed for one thing and one thing only, and that is to create a secret handshake of the upper crust. That's what that is.
Yes, trans people who use neo-pronouns, well known as the upper crust of society. Yes, dude. The trans furry otherkin on Twitter, the upper echelon. Jesus Christ. It's funny, by the way. I mean, I don't want to harp on the point, but the language that he's using right now is pretty identical to the language that people use to dehumanize the Jews as well. By ignoring all of the legitimate claims that they make regarding their own identity, their validity, and their place in society, and saying that all of their attempts to achieve social parity are actually part of a secret language to express dominance over the rest of society, this is how you dehumanize groups of people. Like, it's the exact same method.
The sort of in-group woke signaling does drive a reverse signaling on the part of the right. But that signaling used to be stuff that people sort of considered rote and uncontroversial.
What?
So, for example, the left is very angry today because David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, both the senators from Georgia, who are in very competitive runoff races right now, opposed renaming the Atlanta Braves. And people are like, why are they even commenting on this? The answer is because this is also a form of in-group signaling.
Yeah. Is Ben Shapiro making the argument that all public figures that comment on politics are doing so in some way to signal their intentions? Doesn't this reject the point he was making earlier? They're politicians, of course. They'll talk about anything and everything they can to expand their reach and to provide support to institutions they want to support. But that's for everybody. That's for all institutions. That's for all public figures. What are you talking about? Why would you go on a tirade about the left doing a thing and then admit the right does the same thing? But you agree with it when the right does it, so it's okay then.
This is signaling to their own constituents that they are not a member of the woke elite class. Right? They are not going to speak that language.
Class.
So a counter language has formed in rejection of this language.
Yes, the counter language of racism. That was truly a response to the. You see, we used to live in perfect harmony, and then people on Twitter started using neo-pronouns, and then an elite group of conservative countercultural experts, they have to paint themselves in the counterculture, by the way, even though everything conservatives stand for are reinforcing the same old power structures that have been around for hundreds of years, even though conservatives are the ones who bitch every single time any positive change, forward movement is made in society, they're actually the counterculture. Oh, gotcha, that's fine, Hyena. It's necessary. You have conservatives, they do this all the time. We're actually the counterculture, even though they like... I see this on the Donald.win, which is like their latest Cope Central forum, because Donald Trump lost, and he loses every single day because he won't accept it, and he keeps flailing around like a dying fish on a harbor. That simultaneously, conservatives will say they're the counterculture, and they'll also call him the God Emperor of the United States, and call for like martial law in order to genocide all the liberals in this country. They'll make, like, to them, because they do, and this is the thing with Ben Shapiro and all the other conservatives, they have an insane victim complex. They actually believe the upper crust of society are like trans people. They actually genuinely believe that. If you ask them, and I've had these conversations with them, they really do believe, and they get this from people like Jordan Peterson as well. Jordan Peterson was saying, like, people were going to be arrested and taken to prison for not gendering trans people correctly. It's been years. It's never happened. But people legitimately got stirred up into fear because of that. Conservatives live every day beneath a fucking veil of monsters they've painted on their own bedroom walls. They're perpetually terrified and they have nothing to fear. It's so sad. In a way, like, I feel more sorry for them than I do openly oppose them, because, I mean, at the very least, like, minorities, trans people, black people, whatever, you know what you are and you know what you're fighting for. Conservatives are shadowboxing their way through life. They're insane. And I mean, some people, like Ben Shapiro, make millions of dollars off of perpetuating that tendency. But, like, can you imagine unironically calling neo-pronouns a component of the upper crust of society? Jesus Christ.
Now, I'm not saying they're wrong, because they're not. I totally agree with them. I don't think that the Atlanta Braves is an insulting name. I don't think the Cleveland Indians was an insulting name.
We know.
I mean, even if you want to make the case that the Washington Redskins was an insulting name.
This is also virtue signaling, by the way. There's no reason for you to comment on this except for you to signal to your audience that you're not part of the woke whatever.
Which, again, is controversial and I don't really agree with. Even if you want to make that case, there's a world of separation between using the term Redskin and using the term Indians, Braves, or like Kansas City Chiefs, right? That
wasn't this originally about Cartoon Network?
Three of those terms cannot even be construed as derogatory toward a particular group of people.
Dude, would you ever have a team called the fucking Oregon Blacks? And like the fucking... Dude, even if you're saying Indians instead of Redskins, it's still really weird to have a team named after a fucking race. That's still really strange. I don't know. Maybe somewhere in America we do have the fucking Wyoming Blacks or something, and their mascot is just like a normal black guy. He doesn't even have like a costume. He just walks out there. He takes $100 for the fee. He waves at some people and then he goes back. Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. It might be. Oh wait, yeah, there are no black. Well, the fact that there are no black people in Wyoming might be the reason why. Yeah, the New York Jews. No, But yeah, no, it's pretty weird to like have the mascot of your team be like a race. I don't know. It's pretty strange. But I don't care. This is what I mean by meaningless culture, like culture war issues, by the way. It's funny that Ben Shapiro just took time to like denounce the virtue signaling of the woke cult, because like engaging in this kind of so what has he talked about so far? He's talked about a Cartoon Network cartoon. Now he's talking about sports team names. Okay. But the person who was virtue signaling was the guy who was criticizing the government for withholding $500 million in medical aid. Yeah. All right. That's the meaningless cultural issue people are signaling over.
Okay, but the idea here from Loeffler and Perdue is this is, again, a form of in-group social signaling.
Okay. That
It
everything
is saying that
is
the wokes
holy
should
shit.
not be able to take away sort of common items that we used to hold in common. So Loeffler and Perdue released a joint statement on Monday. They said not only are the Braves a Georgian institution,
Wait. So the right is allowed to virtue signal because their positions on these issues are historically accepted, but they're the counterculture? Wait, I can't believe I didn't see this contradiction before. He's simultaneously arguing that virtue signaling is okay from the right because those positions are hegemonically traditionally accepted, but also that they're the counterculture. These are completely incompatible positions. Oh, God, I want to debate Ben one day. I know he would never, ever, ever do it because this pussy only debates college students, and when the people he has on his podcast are people who he knows are going to at least agree with him, or when they have disagreements, they'll be incredibly superfluous, minor disagreements done in extremely polite terms, and it'll only last a little bit. Oh, God. Yeah, I have to dress up as a college student, dude. That's the real fucking meme, okay? I need to go back for my grad degree, right around the time Ben Shapiro is doing his fucking I'm 37 years old but still a child Wunderkind tour. So he can go to fucking Berkeley or something, and I can, like, shave my fucking beard, and I can, like, pull my hair back, and I'll, like, like fit myself in a little hoodie or something, and then he's, hey, can we get a college student up here? And I stand up, I rock my shoulders, and the hoodie explodes, revealing my toned 29-year-old body, as you can clearly tell what we're building up to. And I walk up there, I grab the mic, the fucking the handle of the mic breaks beneath the grip of my fingers, and I take him to task. I walk up there. That's what we need, okay? Because like I can't believe people make money saying such stupid shit. It's such an insult to the sanctimonious profession of YouTubing. People respected us YouTube political commentators so much more, but now feels like anyone can do it.
History spanning 54 years in Atlanta, they're an American institution. The Braves name honors our nation's Native American heritage, which should not be erased. Under no circumstances should one of the most celebrated teams in sports cave to the demands of the cancel culture and the radical left.
Wait. If it's honoring fucking Native Americans, why are they the ones who are like most opposed to these names? Okay.
Only 20% of Georgia voters surveyed said they believe that the baseball team needs to change its name. More than 70% of voters say the name should be kept. That is one of the reasons.
What about the percentage of Native American participants in that poll? If you're arguing it honors them,
why they are making that move. And that's one of the reasons they're saying this sort of stuff, because so much of our culture war is reliant on this linguistic semantic war. The language is reflective of the deeper culture war that is taking place.
He actually talks about the culture war like it's a real thing to be fought. Somebody in chat, by the way, asked, what is the culture war? The culture war is a series of incredibly petty and meaningless arguments over fundamentally progressivism versus reactionary beliefs. And generally speaking, this goes the exact same way every time, okay? This is the culture war, okay? Generally speaking, you'll have a non-issue, and then one group will make it into an issue immediately. Almost always, this is the conservatives. It'll either be like trans people exist, or a video game has like a pronoun selector at the beginning during character customization, or like a university will offer a course on like whiteness and racial discourse in American history. And all these are perfectly normal, defensible things. And then the conservatives, usually very well-paid conservatives, usually people who make millions of dollars, like if not a year, then at least like over the course of their career, will then blow it up into a massive culture issue, and then everybody has to talk about it, okay? This happens every single fucking time. It happens every time there's a progressive cartoon, every time there's a progressive video game, every time a celebrity says or does something progressive. We just did it over that one guy who wore a dress. Candace Owens turned that into a culture war thing by saying that the masculinity was being destroyed in the West. We have it on the war on Christmas, where literally nothing is happening anywhere, but the conservatives are convincing themselves, Harry Styles, thank you, but conservatives are convincing themselves that Christmas is going to be obliterated by cashiers choosing to say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. It's always like nothing is happening, and then conservatives pretend that it's the end of the world. The culture war is not a back and forth thing. The culture war is conservatives trying to get other people on board with their meaningless, asinine excuses as to why we need to prevent progressivism. Remember Jordan Peterson and C-16, the Bill C-16 in Canada? Who's been arrested on account of that bill? That bill which just extended their human rights over to trans people. Fucking nobody. Nobody has. But Jordan Peterson literally got in a soapbox, and he was like, and if the thought police come for me, because I refuse to use these pronouns as they will, then I would rather go to jail, or I would rather die at the stake or be shot than subscribe to their totalitarian Marxist perspective. It's like insane. The culture war is a delusion, okay? And the real victims of the culture war are the conservatives, because they're the ones who are being led astray from the real issues. Do you know how many conservatives I've talked to who actually do think, hey, capitalism's excesses have really fucked our country up. Hey, the healthcare in this country is genuinely non-functional. Hey, like all of these issues, like real issues, like actual effective things that really make a difference. There are a lot of conservatives who care about these. Believe it or not, there are. But they're deluded through the culture war. They're deluded into believing that it's worth sacrificing everything else to protect their country from being destroyed by the lack of people saying Merry Christmas at the cashier's line. Remember that Tim Pool fan I debated? That guy conceded every point on Trump's performance, every single point. But he still, because of some nebulous idea about the culture war, he still defended voting for Trump. He conceded on everything, but he was so convinced that Western civilization's perpetuation relied on essentially a destruction of progressive values that he couldn't see any of it. In essence, the culture war is a veil that conservative demagogues throw over everyone who will listen to prevent them from seeing what's really wrong with our society. They did this 100 years ago, too. There were big, wealthy folks, robber barons, politicians, and what they would do is they would stoke racial tension amongst the working class to prevent them from being able to collectively unionize. Folks, how well do you think a general strike works if your union only is white people? Don't. Black folk are just going to go right over there and work instead. In fact, they might even get paid more because they need to be incentivized to pick up the slack from all the white folk. And a lot of unions back in those days were racially segregated because the union leaders were victims of incredibly dedicated racial propaganda designed to prevent them from working together. It's the old class war. The culture war is a distraction from the class war. We did the same thing back in the 1960s, too, with real issues like austerity and the war in Vietnam and in the Cold War and like healthcare spending and everything. And you know what we ended up arguing about? A drug war that Nixon forced out of nowhere that did no good for this fucking country. Hippies, student walkouts. All of a sudden, the real threat to our country stopped being any of its institutions in the way they were failing and started being students smoking pot. That's what they did, and they've been continuing to do this for centuries. Conservatives are tragic victims. They're too stupid to realize that they are tools used by the ruling class to prevent them from recognizing the circumstances of their oppression. Does that make sense? That's the culture war. And that's why, by the way, if we were to win the culture war, such as it exists, we don't actually want to fight them on their terms. We want to convince them on ours. That is to say, the fact that we have a real understanding of what's wrong with our society, healthcare, the accumulation of power by the wealthy, so on and so forth. We need to make those arguments. The reason I talk about culture war issues is because it is occasionally possible to shake people out of their culture war-addled perspective by showing them how stupid their demagogues are. But I don't actually care so much about their position on the culture war issues. What I care about is trying to get them to snap back to reality. Oops, there goes grab. To get them to focus on the issues that matter. That's my goal. Sorry. Mom spaghetti. Cringe? You're cringe. Fuck you. You know what? Fine. You know what? Fuck you. Segment's done. Goodbye. Fade out. Play the outro theme.